So this is a restorative sequencing, but we are going to use a wall space today. So there will be part of the class where you'll see from my collarbones down, but that'll be about 5% really. It's a very small piece of the session. So let's prepare. So we've got our blankets, everything's off of the mat except your bolster is right at the wall. Instead of it being flat, I want you to tip it up on its side, right up to the wall. And then your sandbag is near that area. And you'll sit at the wall. You're going to bring your seat to the wall and you'll take your hands forward on your blocks and kind of learn from your experience of movement how you set your feet onto your ground. Kind of feel how the feet, hopefully they're bare. It's nice to have bare feet to feel the essential connection up into the legs. But at this point, you have both your feet and your seat to feel like the roots of your experience of basically alignment, huh? So if you can go lower on the blocks, certainly take the hands and the blocks down. But as you tilt the body weight, I want you to let the spine have some sensation of movement down out of the pelvis. But instead of just completely hanging from the pelvis, get the feel of, hopefully the bolster's not all in your way. It's a bit of a restriction so you don't put your feet really close to the wall. And we'll find out why. But at this moment, I have my hands on something. And so I have some activation of my arms. So I want you to feel that you're pushing. So your arms are warming up, but at the same time, the brain can release. You don't have to hold your neck up. You can let your spine and your brain release down. And turning the focus inward so that the motions that might be different today can bring your awareness in a cycle of focus to the breathing. Let's just keep coming back to that. Deep inhale. And smooth exhale. Deep breath in. And slow breath out. Now feeling how your seat has circulation, right? There's pressure, there's pushing towards the wall. So now, as you begin that process of still using your hands pressing and moving your head to lift up, so you have this arch of the spine, we have the arms warming up for a reason, even though they might not be full body weight into the arms like a downward dog. But I want you to bend through the legs and then just move your blocks off to the sides. And use your hands above your knees to round your back so that you can carefully craft moving up. And then we'll just take a side stretch. So step your feet back towards the wall so your body is on the wall. Your upper bones are touching the wall of your back. And then let the right arm stretch open. I know it depends on the spacing you have. So you might be kind of tilting a little to the left. But stretch your right arm over the right side of your face to get that side stretch. So you're simply back at the wall and you're leaning, you're reaching your right arm over. And I'm not mirroring you, but I'm doing the same action at the wall and I'm trying to feel my body touch back to the wall, even my head. Okay, now switch sides. So right arm down, left arm lifts up and over, back touches the wall, head touches the wall. Try to let your right arm dangle so the left arm can do the work of stretching that side of your spine. Lowering the left arm, and then turn to the right side of your body to the wall. And we're going to stretch the right arm back. So we'll take what's called a shoulder clock. So I use my right hand against the wall. I turn the fingers to face back. And then I'm stretching the right side of the chest, the pectoral muscles. And if I get a feel of walking my feet towards the mat, towards the middle of my space to stretch my chest, you can either choose to have your your feet right parallel to the wall. You can turn your feet away. You can walk your right hand farther back, but really work with essentially stretching your right arm, hip, chest. Okay? You might let your left arm dangle for a few of these moments and tilt your left ear towards your shoulder. Okay, so go with the essential feeling of that chest stretching. This is a really good one for movement in our chest muscles, because we'll get to all those good things, but I want to do this before we do legs up the wall in the beginning today to get this area open, the collarbone, the endocrine glands here above that in the throat. Change sides, so left arm. And some of us might be kind of hooking our hand to the edge of a wall. It might not be just like this, but your essential position is your hand is to the wall. Your palm can be turned back, fingers back, and then turn the feet towards the center and kind of play with how you tilt your head to the right. So you stretch your neck. You can't quite see that. I'll do a short version on my knees. So the hand is back, my head tilts over towards my right ear. And you could certainly do this hand gesture kind of anywhere in your house, right? Just stretch out your chest. This is a good anytime thing to do, right? Even if you see just the edge of a wall, you can stretch out your chest. Turn to the wall, both hands, and then push into a wall dog. So you're walking your hands down, your fingers spread out, your chest stretching. Find the level for you that's right, which might not be very far up. It might be farther down at the wall, and push your hips back. Yeah, find that sitting space in air moving back, and arch the spine, let your head release, press the wall away, breathing. This is all going to settle nicely when we get our legs up in a few moments. Okay, now I like to get a massive motion where I'm trying to move my chest down. It's kind of releasing, and then turn for one final time where you turn with your seat against the wall again. Turn your bolster, flip your bolster so it's flat. It's no longer on its edge, it's turned straight down, so it's just like you're used to for legs up the wall. But first things first, heels are right on the floor next to the bolster, so you might be a little closer to the wall than you were previously. You may feel like you're farther away. Depends on how you set up. I feel farther away. Seat at the wall, and now let your spine completely stretch to the brain. The arms can dangle. You might feel that your hands on the bolster is very centering for you. Maybe your hands clutching the back of your legs and your head down. Maybe the arms really just in front of you, dangling. And then improve that movement of breath in your back by deep breath, rib cage expansion, and completely relying on the support. So just a few more moments before we sit on the bolster. Okay. Now bring your hands to your bolster and let's just scoot our feet forward. This might be dependent on your individual kind of balance of your flexibility. So you'll take a seat onto the bolster. Sometimes you kind of drop down, sometimes you squat down to get onto the bolster. And then scoot your hips over to one side and lean over so that you can actually get your tush at the wall, your sitting bones. And this is where you're going to probably need your other blanket. So take one blanket, maybe 3/4 of the way in on the mat towards the wall. And then you'll swing the legs up the wall, almost to the other side for me. And as I lift up my hips, I just try to set myself kindly so that my back circulation is arching. So I feel like my ribs get this nice pull. After all of that confusing setup to begin of movements, I think this is kind of a nice way to start to center our bone structure. And get a sandbag, place it on the feet, let the legs feel that experience of movement to the wall, like I'm pushing up, I'm going to the wall with the heels. Okay, and the arms are into goalpost, and you might feel that convenient shape of the elbows outwards, the hands straight back from the elbows. If you need something to help you calm in that zone, you have little bean bags, those would be good in your hands for this pose. But as the feet flex and the mind settles into this experience of arching and fluctuating in and out breath, you start to arrive into centering the shape. And so you'll feel your lower back positioned on the bolster, and you'll feel that flow from the pelvis to the kind of the kidney space. Gets a nice kind of pressure point in this position. So circulation for those organs. And then massage the movement of the abdomen and the diaphragm with the breath. Think about each breath as an inner massage. And we're starting to set up our circulation in our kind of our whole being right now as we come into this. You know, you can always decide, of course, even before right now, if the bolster didn't work under your pelvis, you wanted maybe a blanket instead, something lower. There's different ways of customizing the poses, but the legs up is just a nice reverse gravitational pull on the muscles, the organs, just your vascular system. Okay, so give it just a few more moments. And kind of tease the grounds of circulation by just carefully move your feet a little bit away from the wall, just towards the center. And if the circulation in the thighs changes or you really feel it up at your hips, it's likely not going to do a lot of challenge to your breathing, but it could challenge your breathing method right now when your legs move away from the wall. So inhale fully for 4 to 5 counts. Exhale for 5 to 6. Okay, now bending through both of the legs as balanced as they can bend, okay? We're going to slide the sand away, and I want you to go from here to slide your blanket back. You're actually going to scoot back. So you're not going to roll to the side, you're going to scoot back. We're going to do a whole little bridge series here for our spine massage and our circulation in the hip flexors, right? So if you like to get your hip flexors and your glutes worked, we're going to do a nice rhythm of movement for that. So if you've got a block or a ball, get a hold of that. Could be either. Either one's perfect. You definitely will need a block today for this pattern, however, coming up. But I'm going to use a ball for this because variety's nice. So place the ball between the knees and feet at the wall. How far away you are from the wall is really individual, meaning I like to have it so it's a right angle I might slide back a little more after I get the bridge pose going. And we'll see how my back or your back muscles respond to the spacing. So my toes point upwards and I lift up my hips and my arms move back. I've got a blanket under my head, but it's not for everybody. So if you don't want to use that, you can slide it away. So lift and lower your hips. Just think of that, just something simple like that. I know you got a spine that's getting some decompressive patterns, but the gist of it is the hips right now. Nice. So yeah, it looks like we have the feet, those that I can see in the right spacing. I can't see everybody perfectly with it, but I want you to kind of notice that it looks good though. That when you lift up your hips the next time or two, where the circulation is in the feet, right? Do you have to push or does it push into your back when you lift the hips up? So distribute, you're trying to really distribute the motion of the spine. So I'm trying to scoot my tail under and then lift the hips. And so I use the wall like just purely as a prop. It's like if you were standing, doing standing poses, you got to use your feet as your base, but I don't spend a lot of energy on them, mostly the mid body. Because this mid body is where we want to make some changes. You just want to affect the circulation in the organs and the spine. Always, right? The feet are the feet. Another topic. Okay, last time. Now, I know that the hip flexors for this shape is, if they kind of fire, they're like activating. They're not necessarily getting this nice easeful stretch, but at least we're trying to get movement in the front of the leg. Now, next time you come up, try to just hold it. I know you may have come down, but just see if you can lift back up and hold it for a few. And the leg should be really warmed up, like your legs are getting to fatigue. So if you've got a ball, you don't have to squeeze it. That would only make it more challenging. But you can get a feeling of holding on to the object between the knees, squeezing a little bit inwards. So around the buttock, all this area is getting toned just by the hold. You're kind of activating mid-body. Let your arms go towards the ceiling. They just lift and then lower the spine. Your spine delivery is all by the movement of you letting your hips lower down. And this whole like mid package is like trying to figure out how to move pelvis to help your alignment is probably a life practice, right? So when you bring your knees to your chest, remove the item between. And now, this is my favorite piece today. We're going to scoot back, and I want you to scoot back with your blanket as far back so that when you push your feet into the wall on above your bolster, your legs, they bend, but they basically you push and you feel as if you can push into the wall and kind of lower down the knees so it's close to straight. It's not going to be perfect with what we're doing, but you at least know you're farther back. You can still see me. Okay, so now we're going to take our shape here. So I want you to bring your feet to your bolster, lift your hips and slide A1. We only get one block for this one. And I've been taught where the block is at the tailbone, but I was taking a session yesterday and the guidance was the block is close, a little bit farther down, more to the buttocks. But, doing a little study on that, I see kind of both sides to it. So I'm going to still start at my tailbone because that's what I've been taught from in-person stuff. But you can kind of try if it's lower, and this is where you'll figure it out. You're going to stretch your left. Actually, you can keep your left knee bent if you prefer. It's a little bit easier, I think. But I'll bring the right leg up. Okay, so you're basically lifting your right knee. The reason I like my block a little higher is because it just feels easier on my low back. Now straighten the left leg and clutch the back of the right leg. And it is true, we have the block underneath us. If it ain't working for you, it ain't working for you. And you could use something like your blanket under your pelvis if the block feels too harsh. Why we're doing this is to stretch open the hip flexor on each side as we go. So the left leg, I'm trying to let it kind of release. The foot is at the wall. If you want less foot dominance in the position, the left foot, you could scoot your pose back a bit too. But this is one you kind of have to play with your props, I think, whether you use a block or a blanket. And it's definition in the sacrum, isn't it? When you have something that's very firm under it. So that might work for some. Blanket might be better for others. But try to get that right knee to bend. So if I have a blanket under me, it's just lower, and my lift is just lower, but I still can stretch the hip flexor. And that'll help our glutes, and then that in turn helps the low back. Yeah, I'm at the back of the right leg. I'm not above the shin. Okay, give it a few more moments. And why don't we feel what it's like when you let the leg stretch up, the right leg. It's tempting to use a belt, I think, on this one, but try to see if you can get a hold here. If that's not working, you certainly could use your belt behind your right leg, even part of that belt, not the whole thing. And that might give you a little bit more ease in your arms, right? Not as much full arm use, getting extra arm with the belt. Okay, change sides. So right leg goes down. Okay, now left knee goes in, and when you swap the leg that's bending, there's no sand required here on the front of the leg that's down, but come to think of it, as I go to my second side, that would have been nice. Okay, all right, but I wasn't learning something with the sandbag when I was learning it, so it doesn't come to mind until I'm in it now. But when you're delivering the knee bending towards you, keep in mind that the farther I move the knee back doesn't increase this hip flexor stretch. It's about letting that right leg relax. Just let it go. You're moving your left knee in, right, to stretch through the back of that left side of the waist to promote the sensation to the right hip flexor. Stretch the left leg up for some of us, not all of us, however it feels for you. And feel where the leg muscles kind of push back into the hands. And then bend through the knee, and both legs are straight down to the wall. Okay, this is where a sandbag might be nice. Mine isn't nearby, so I'm not finding ease to get that. But if you do have some weight, you can put it on the top of the thighs. This is a good prim and proper supported bridge pose, right? This would be classic. Use a wall. You define the amount of extension in the legs by balancing with your feet at the wall. You can kind of play with the heels a little bit away or the heels to the wall. And then the legs get a feeling of kind of rotating inwards, thighs together, and the arms span open. If you still want to get that sandbag, you can roll over, get your sand, put it on top of the thighs. But if you're feeling like good enough here, let your eyes close, kind of expose the circulation in the hips. And really land at your feeling of the wall. And now what is it like when we move out? So we bring the knees to bending, the bottoms of the feet on the bolster. This is your traditional bridge shape. But attempt this without clenching at the buttocks. See if you can just let the knees bend. And so you allow the skin and the flesh to formulate the pose without kind of binding the flesh with the muscles, which is just what they do. It's the instruction they get, either relax or tighten, relax or tighten. So we press down into our feet, and the muscles in the back of the leg wake up. But how can you do this with pushing down? And then instead of trying to squeeze the glutes too deeply, I want you to work on the feet going a little wider on the bolster. That way the musculature in the whole back of the leg starts to activate. It's not just one piece. And then the wider the feet are, that is. You push down, you lift up the hips, you slide the block out. And then once the spine lengthens down, windshield wiper the knees. And if you feel like you need to get closer to the bolster so your feet are right on top, that's fine. But sometimes just that casual nature of kind of unstripping the back of the legs and get a feeling now that you're moving into the side. And we're actually going to move it from the side to the adductors in a moment. So let the knees kind of just flip side to side. I mean, they have all this coating and they're attached to the rest of the leg, so upper and lower. So the calves probably get zilch. They're probably zilch sensation, but the upper pieces of the leg, those feel. So you might need to scoot a little bit towards the bolster, but get a feel now where the knees move out, the feet are together. And if you need blocks, you just put them underneath the legs. It'll be about the most a minute. So you might be just fine without your blocks. Be sure your blanket's under your head. Even if you didn't use a blanket for your bridge pose, this is an important one to find that balance. Feet are together and they're pretty relaxed. They kind of slide in, they touch. Maybe not all parts of the foot is enamored together, but the leg muscles, whether you have blocks or not, are likely feeling the sensation. I like the blocks for this. And I kind of wedge them far into the leg, so it's just right at the attachment of the flesh at the top of the leg. That seems to be like a nice match for the blocks. If I go too far up, the bones kind of feel like they're pressing into the block. So you've got to find where it's pretty fleshy, and then it works out. Fleshy's good. Interlace your fingers, push the palms to the ceiling, send them back overhead. Okay, and instead of trying to push your belly back, see if you can let your belly casually move with your breath. Just feel its general movement. Cross the right arm at the upper chest, just towards the collarbone, and then bring your left hand across to that right elbow and stretch the deltoid on your right arm. Your arm might feel really close to your throat. That's okay. As long as it's not pushing down into your throat, it just may be a sensation of closeness. And then change the arm crossing. You know, be curious of the simpleness of your back on the ground, but when you cross the arm, what peels up? Hopefully nothing peels off of your back. And then as you get that sense, are you going too far? So I find on this side, I took my arm too far. I could feel my left side of my collarbone with pressure to the touch of the arm on it. So I got to just kind of back off. So I'm feeling into the upper left arm. I'm not trying to push my arm uncomfortably into my collarbone. And for some of us, it's just the mobility of the shoulder joint that affects the differences. You know, as you take away that crossover, okay, bring the knees to point up, and then if you've got stuff on the right side of your mat, slide a little bit away so that you can push your bolster over to that right side, okay? So I take the bolster to the right side of my mat. You know, it's fully lengthened out. It's not turned on horizontal, but as I slide a little bit back, my goal is to have my right leg stretching fully to touch to the wall. And then I cross the left leg over to the bolster. And you might have a ball at your sacrum area. You might have your sandbag on the upper outer left leg. But here's one where I would think that you would have to kind of play a bit with the connectivity. So my right knee is bending. I'm trying to source out the circulation in my left hip. So when I hold on to that left leg and cross it over, I got to decide if I want to pull my leg high, the left leg, or I want to let it slide kind of downwards before I sand it. Okay. Your right leg might be better off bending quite a bit on this one. And then find the ease in your ability to put that sand up to that left leg. And if it just kind of sacks on, the sack just, attaches and it kind of gets molded onto your leg instantly. You might still want to move it down towards the knee, just a little bit so you can feel that circulation effect into your left hip. Okay, so let your head turn to the left, and your right hand could be anywhere. You could have it on your mid body to feel the breath. You could have it on the ground just to let go. You could cover your eyes with your hand. Different ways of using that right hand. And then as you feel where your head rolls to the left, let your spine respond with its natural arch. Now, we're never trying to make and force a straight experience in the back. It has curves. You may feel like you reach out of the back in poses trying to straighten up, but feel where the ribs move with the breath, right, to help the circulation back into the heart, into the lungs. Slow inhale. And relax on the out breath. Now, one final moment here with the focus of the left leg relaxing. Well, maybe it's not relaxing, it's stretching. Kind of a blend of relax, right? Part stretching, part relaxing. It's relax. Now let your head roll back and center. And it's kind of clear we'll go to the second side, but what you do in between, you might really connect inwards, especially when you're in your kind of home space. It's a little easier to find that momentum inwards. The distractions are a little less. Well, they might be more in your home, but as far as the practice folk around you, a little different. So take the sand away, the ball, all those things that are attached to your leg. And when your leg has no attachments, right, and you're on your back, it's no attachments to the legs. Is it knees to chest that feels good, circling? Is it windshield wiper? Do you have to kick your feet up in the air and shake it out? Whichever feels good. I like the knees bending and hold on to the knees, kind of hook my fingers around them, and then just making circles around the sacrum. Even though it's not a round object in your body, it does accumulate that rotation and that easefulness with the movement. And then find the stillness. Get a hold of that bolster, move it to the left side, and then start to activate the crossover on the right hip. So take your time. Maybe you have to kind of stay involved with the feeling of the sacrum. Maybe you visualize it as a disc, even if that's not what it is, but you can visualize what you want. And then as the left leg goes down, I have my knee pretty well bent. So I'm going to push back a little bit but I know it'll end up bending anyway, the left leg, both legs bend. So as I cross the right leg over the bolster, I've got to get a feeling of, kind of rolling on my left hip. Now, one side you might tend to do these habits more than the other. So it's helpful to kind of cast over the left or the right leg and then just feel how you're in the middle of it, right? What the middle is doing. Maybe use a ball at the sacrum, maybe use a sandbag on the right leg. Maybe in the beginning you don't want to do those things. You want to just kind of stay crossing over the leg and then figure out the additions, the toppings in your pose. So cross over. Yeah, the stand feels pretty good on this one. Yeah, and let the spine feel that relationship of rotation and openness through the chest. Anything that needs to kind of release into, maybe your lower leg needs to bend more. Maybe you don't like your foot at the wall anymore. You can change those things so that you can feel kind of this inner tube of movement. Yeah, that blend of crossing over and stretching and resting. And let your head roll to the right. The left hand could be anywhere. If you tend to use it as an activator, like to push into the sand, you might give it a little bit of a head start. And then see what happens when you remove your hand. And if any of that continues, that reach of the leg. Sometimes it does nothing, or it's just it's mostly a mental process, but the physicality doesn't respond. You just kind of play with it. If movement internally, like feeling your tail move back or move under, like cat-cow movements, very subtle, it can be nice, really micro motions. But eventually I would find stillness in this, so the body can kind of steep the sensations. Breathing, empty the lungs. Okay, now I know that your leg pattern has felt this crossover, this sensation of reach. So we'll start to move, but we're going to move to table pose in a few moments. So we'll use the wall with our feet to the wall. So the turning will be you're turning over towards the left, and then you'll end up in table, maybe kind of sort of. So if you need to roll on your back a little bit, do so. If you're feeling, oh, I'm okay, I can roll and come up to table, fine. You can always come back to the sacrum and kind of rock a little bit side to side or do some small circles, both directions. And then get the feel of when you take your movement over towards either side, okay? I want you to feel when you get your hands under you that you can get your blanket and slide that in so it's below just the knees, right? It's not under any other space. You have your support and your hands underneath you. Take the spine motion. My feet are at the wall, maybe a little more than I was hoping they would be pushing into it, but I'm just going to see what happens with it because it's good for my back muscles to feel this. Things like squats are kind of hard on the knees, but this is a nice way to work the muscles that would be in a squat because your feet push a little on the wall and that activates the back of the legs. So plant your fingers out wide. Spine moves into cat. So let your back muscles reach heart, chin to chest. Inhale, arch the spine. Okay, and feel as we go through cat-cow, the stretching of the muscles that support the spine. Okay, that's obvious, I suppose, but also feel how the stomach area stretches. So let's take it to what feels good for you. Push back and bring your hands a little farther out, stretch out with the arms, and then lean forward so it's more of a therapeutic movement balance to up dog. Lengthen out through the front zones. Take some care at the neck. Yeah, make movements curious here. So you alternate the movement of head touches down, hips move back towards child's pose, and then round your back to move forward to arching your back, lifting the chest. Great, and let the movements be pretty energizing in a deep, kind of deep, dense level in your bones. So if you let the movements exist so you have a nice foundation on both the feet and the hands, you might be feeling like, oh my goodness, I'm getting a lot of reach in my waist. And then if one direction is not as friendly for your back than the other, then you can modify. You can go less time with this version of up dog maybe, and more time with the child's pose awareness, which is oftentimes called wisdom pose, this pattern back. Okay, now next time you articulate going forward and back, okay, let's take us a lunge. So I imagine that when you come to table, you have two ways of going into a lunge with your right foot, right? You can either move your hips back and then step forward. I tend to use blocks on this one, but I don't always use them to get into it. So if I have my knees apart, it's not the best for my back balance, my low back. So if I move the knees together, then step through and get a couple blocks. I think we all could probably use blocks on this one, under your hands. I know we could step on a block, that would be a curious balance. But get a feel when your hands are on the height of the blocks for you. So some of us long-armed, longer levers might find better with a block lower, but it also is flexibility. So feel the low lunge, so that right knee motions forwards. Okay, this will be a little mixture of patterns. So take a moment here, low lunge. So left thigh really stretches down your hip flexor. Watch out the knee doesn't go over the toes. It might move a little over the ankle towards the toes, but I don't want you to completely push over. Okay. And then take a step with the left foot towards the right. So you're going to step forward with your left foot. So your feet are in the stance. I want you to take a wide stance. So if your blocks are too low, bring them up. Scoot your feet to the edges of your sticky mat in that wider stance. And I would just use the blocks under your hands. I know you might have a temptation to kind of move your spine down, drop through, but use a little bit of core balance here. We don't have to balance on our blocks with our hands and move our legs anywhere, but feel when your feet are in this wide stance, feel the feet parallel. Okay, and then as we're here, I want you to let your hips tilt back. And then see if you can bend your elbows a little bit. This might happen, it might not, with the head lowering down. Breathing. Okay, scoot your feet, toe heel your feet back towards each other as close as they'll go. Take the blocks back so they're beside your feet. Step the right foot back, feel the lunge, and lower the knee down. So we're still going to work with those low lunges to start. So let the left knee kind of dart forward with the right thigh stretching towards the ground. You know, I guess it's kind of an awareness like the splits, right? When you would move your thigh very far, and the left undercurrent of that leg is stretching fairly well. Yeah, I like using the wall for for balancing practice as well. So give a few more moments where your blocks can be any height. If you want to lower the blocks and just feel the different density and the kind of the threshold of the hip flexor, you're welcome to do so, even if the hands go farther up or they go farther down. Just feel the territory of your hip flexor. And then lift up the back knee. Bring your feet so they're a little farther back towards the wall. And so your right heel is up at the wall. Okay? You decide here how you're going to work with this one. So I'm going to let my right heel actually lower down so it's closer towards the floor than up at the wall, just so I can stretch my right calf. Now the left knee is still going to try to stay bending a bit. I don't want you to have it fully straight at this moment. Oh, it's tempting, I know. But try to bend the left knee, and you can take your blocks higher. This is about as high as my blocks will go, though. I don't have more block. They don't go up when I push them. Okay, but feel the right heel. I know I'm trying to get it to the floor. This is the time of year your calves are probably in a little rebound. They're probably doing a lot of, contracting for more walking. So stretching them out is a nice flush for the lymph. Okay. Now, if your heel is up at the wall, and that's what feels best for you, that's okay. If your heel is a little lower and your left knee is bending a bit, I want you to try to straighten out the left leg a little further back so the muscles of the back of the leg are pressing in towards the left heel. And then feel the waist stretch towards away from the wall. Try to get the trunk to stretch. I'll just try. Not easy. There's always further to go. Always further to go on these. You can lower your hands down, meaning the blocks. If it's a little much and your flexibility doesn't kind of adhere to this positioning, have your blocks a little higher. And you can always lift the right heel up at the wall. It might be better for some of us. I'm trying to keep my left leg straight. Okay. Now, as you bend through the left knee, to swap the foot that's at the wall. Bring the right foot forward, left leg back. I'm trying to lower my left heel to the ground. Oh my gosh, this does feel like it's tension in calves, at least my side. I don't know how you're feeling, but that is thought of in the summertime, or if it's just you're out walking around a bit more. We're going to do a couple calf series of work here. So if your right knee is bending, that's great. It doesn't have to be this really deep lunge, though. I find that this is like the best lunge I can maybe do more, but my calf feels like it's gonna get shredded if I move my knee farther forward. I think the calf will be okay. So we're isolating kind of away from the back hamstring into the calf. Right? You probably don't really feel your left hamstring in this one. Maybe a little. Now, if you keep the knee bending, or you try to bend it more, the right knee, you don't need to lower your hands unless you love to do that. Okay, if the heel is up and you still get a calf stretch, it's okay. Sometimes the heel just doesn't go. Now, if I turn my back foot out, my heel will go down, but I'm not really designating the calf as much, right, the gastroc. So now as I lift up my left heel a little bit at the wall, I stretch the right leg fully. Yeah, it's easier with the heel up, but I'm still going to try to get my heel back down and see. Yeah, I seem to do better. I don't know how you feel with it. With this side feels better with the right leg straight than when I was bending for the calf stretch. So you can really dissect the calves around here. But maintain that feel of movement through that right leg, straightening it out. Breathe. Okay, the back heel, if you're not getting a lot of calf stretch, you can bring your back foot closer in line with the right leg. So they're both kind of in one plank. Then you'll feel more of the calf. just in case you're not feeling any stretch. Bend the right knee, lower the back knee. And then take the right foot back. And I want you to get we're going to start getting kind of prop happy here. So you're going to take your bolster, center on your mat, straight forward and spine-wise, and take a Sphinx pose. So I'm going to scoot my bolster a little distance from my knees. So when I stretch forward like an up dog and I push my feet to the wall with my toes curled under at the base of the wall, you might have your feet a little bit up at the wall. I would encourage you to stretch your toes so that the toes are on the ground. At least I can see that my toes are down there. Yes, they are. My heels are up. And then lower down. Keep the spine strong and lower the elbows. Once your elbows are down, it's kind of challenging to get back up to the spine challenge. I know it's like you already get passive, but let your elbows press down so you feel like, take a moment without pushing around with your wrists, let your hands lift and just kind of feel from your elbows. This is a very tricky shoulder thing to do, huh? Get your elbows to do the work. And then let your forearms relax down from the elbows, or your two arms. Okay, your palms could turn open. So it'd be a great exercise for your wrists to release a bit. Those bean bags would be good again. A long time since I saw a little bean bag. Okay, so feel where the elbows are releasing down. And then I want you to slide the arms back so they're in line with the top of the bolster. Elbows are by the sides. Now, you don't have to have this kind of funny palm open. It feels very odd, I have to admit, this palm open position. But I'm trying to work my shoulders differently. Okay, so now let's bring the hands, lifting them up. A lot of back strength here. So my hands are up, my palms are not turned down, my palms are open towards the ceiling. Okay, then slide the elbows, move them forward and down. And then feel the spine, especially towards the collarbones, move forward like you're trying to create this spine arch. If this whole palm open thing is starting to bug you, you can flip them back down because it's definitely been it's challenging if you don't spend your yoga practice ever doing this. It's just nice to have variety. Okay, your glutes might not be active here. So we'll slide the hands, palms down now, and then press, lift up, push back with your hands pressing the floor, and then turn the bolster across, horizontal. And let's take side sage. So let's do a formal side sage. So we'll take not form of, but formal. We'll take a blanket pack. Blanket packs, that's a new thing. Packs of blankets. Okay, get a stack of blankets on the other side of your bolster. I have a block because I use it for my hand, but not all of us find that to be satisfying. So if you don't use a block overhead, don't worry. But get away from the wall enough so you'll have some clearance room for your legs. So some of you taller might need to move farther away. And then sand is important. Okay, so get your sand, you got your ball if you need that on the inside of the right leg or nothing, so one or the other. And then when you lean down to that left side, you want your sand almost kind of on the bolster so you can slide it over, because at first, if you're even going to use the sand, you might not know where you're going to orient that sandbag. So the right arm is going to be the rib. This side of the ribs, right, is where you're going to facilitate the breath. Okay, so maybe take the time to designate that reach, and then your sand could go either it was before placed on or you're ready now. Now, is it a little more advanced if it's higher up? I don't think that's necessarily so, but I do find that when I breathe, my breathing restrictions are definitely with the sand, a little more challenged. I like to use that sandbag higher to work with that. Now find the block if you're going to use it. If you don't want to, you can let the arm kind of flow around, opening the chest cavity. If you want to keep the arm in a still position, the block can be great. Okay, so try to let that left knee move up towards on the edge. It's next to the bolster, but it's close. And the waist exchanges the movement of the breath. That's you finding that you have a structure. And the waist lengthens. The weight of your head relaxes down. Okay, now if you're turning like me, I'm a little bit to the back of my head. Most likely you're going to be better off really on the side. Okay, maybe not for everyone. It really is individual on the neck. So if you feel better with your head on a little bit towards the back corner, let your head roll a little till you find a still point. And then just simply be. Breathe slow. Feel the stretch of the breath, but maybe not of the skin. So the sand can be restrictive. So you're doing weight training, right, with your breathing muscles, your intercostals. So each muscle between the ribs is challenged. Every one of them. You know, continue the work. When we let the right arm release, you just leave the block overhead. But we'll take a horizontal chest opener. And so we oftentimes start class with some of these blends, but now it's towards the end today. And that's why I'm kind of mixing it up for some, hopefully, it's a good experience. But turn so that your back is going to kind of drape over the bolster. But I mean, your back is is quite a bit of you, your back, your spinal space. So when I lower into my back from here, this is just, it's a lot of, my ribs can sustain it, but there's like just particles of motion that are just kind of feel restrained. They just don't feel quite relaxed. So I'm going to scoop up my blanket and make it a little higher under my head. You can do this part of it to lift it up. You can also put a block under your pelvis. Okay. I actually was sampling using the ball, and I found that to be pretty cool. It feels, it's responsive, right? The surface is, you can kind of release into it different than the block, but the block is good too, or nothing. If you can go with nothing and just add a little more boost with your blankets. Any way that we can get this rib, the status of the ribs to horizontal, like that's the key, is the expansion. So maybe horizontal is just too plain of an experience, but expansive. And the feet, you know, they can walk towards your seat. You could take them farther down. You could take them so the toes turn in, the heels are out, the knees touch. That seems perfect to me. And you might sort out a new idea with that one. I guess the legs only go so many directions, but the breath focus is the dynamic here. So with the weight of your head back, feel the momentum of the ribs with the breath. It's pretty standard, right? The breathing. It's really nice to have standards for yourself, something that can bring you back into balance when things outwards might not feel so. So just working with your simple self breathing. You know, the lower abdomen might feel a little bit left out here, but it's kind of protected. So when you move your knees so that they position about hips distance, for all of us, get a feel. Now, some of it you might be stretching your feet down. I got stuck at the wall, so I couldn't really do that. But you know, you can always take the feet together, the knees out. There's lots of variations with this, but I recommend doing this one as a home, home practice. Well, we are home practicing, but home work maybe. That doesn't even sound fun. Home work, home play. Okay. So this is good, just to lay back on your bolster and breathe and get your ribs excited about being a part of you. All right, excellent work. So as you take it to the second side sage, then as you shift, you're gonna try to feel if you can slide your ball or block away, and then you're gonna roll. And the dynamic might be that you just kind of shove your ribs over, but feel when you go right, your ribs, the left side's still trying to open out to that left side. So take time to flip to the second side and get your block, if you're using that, up, and the ball and the sand. And keep it simple. So we have our side energetic of the weight, and then we get the feel of the rib cage. Yeah, this side feels like each side might have a way that a wave of how you create balance with the props. So it's quite nourishing just to feel the body weight into the ground, the weight of your head into the blankets. And then maybe the arm moves. Maybe it doesn't stay still. But get a feel of the tentative relationship of the collarbones, the ribs in this position. I know they're not tentative, they're existing with you in full force, but feel where you have the opportunity to kind of let things just shift and move with the breath. Right, you've kind of put the ribs up on a pedestal, so you're using these moments to energize and circulate the rib cage. So try to enjoy that exposure. Feeling the balance of expansion and length. It's up to you how you propose that for your mid body, but it's going to be cumulative to this final spinal part, okay? So slide off the sand, and any kind of squirming motion you need to do in the next cycle of movement till you sit up on the bolster is all up to you. So if you need to kind of roll to the side, do cat-cow, fine. If you're going to move the knees in towards each other and kind of roll right. And then when you come up to sit on the bolster, I want you to take a seat and, get a feel after all this kind of rumble tumble through the tumbleweeds of the body. We've done quite a bit of work, just kind of all over the place, really. So let's find a kind of a standard work here. So we'll sit on the bolster. You're going to take your blocks so they're both in easy reach. And then if there's two blankets, if one of them's kind of rolled up, make sure they're flat behind you, tuck them in. And then cross the left leg. I'm just kicking mine out so you see it's my left leg. It's your left leg. Cross it over the right leg. So it's really crossed over. I'm sitting forward. I think if you can't really tell what that's like, I'm just showing you. This is like, it's a crossing pattern. It's pretty awkward. Okay, then take a belt and you're going to reach it under your right foot. So you might have to get it unbuckled, the full belt, and then feel it hold your foot. So I don't know if you think your belt's holding your foot or if it's pulling your foot, but the nature of the movement of the foot is flexing and the belt is holding it. I think it's holding my foot. I like to think that's holding my foot because my foot doesn't get held much. Okay, it gets stepped on a lot. So when I'm pulling my belt, I want you to let the leg be crossed over. And so when you lean forward, you feel your hamstring, your calf. If it's too much extension for your right leg, because the left leg is on it, you can always slip a sandbag under it if it just really feels too extreme. I think we'll be okay. You can create some tolerance for this by not going as far forward. You can pull, you don't have to even touch your nose to your knee and feel it, right? I can feel this plenty when I'm pulling vigorously and I'm tilting at my waist. Pulling the toes back. Just don't pull any toes off. Okay, they're pretty cemented in there, isn't it? Feel the ball of the foot feels like cement. Okay, now that the right leg is really toned, okay, let's remove the belt from the equation here, just for a few, and cross the right leg under, so it scoops under, so that foot goes to the bolster, left leg points up. You can put a sandbag on the right thigh, kind of sneak it in there and bring it so it's on top of the right thigh. And that gives you some nice root grounding. And then twist to your left, bring your right arm to the left leg and rotate. And feel how the waist, it doesn't spring up, although I like my waist to be more spring-like in its rotation, but feel when your ability to rotate allows you to lift up at the ribs, turn into the waist, press with the right arm, breathe. Yeah, you don't have to have your eyes open, you can close your eyes. And just experience where that movement is in the mid-body, spiraling up towards the shoulders. We'll turn forward or just go back to the front and take the left foot, slide it in front of the right knee. Use your hands on your blankets or your bolster. Depends on if you're long arms, you'll have to go back to the blanket, but you'll just kind of push your hips back so that you're seated with an arch. So I'm not entirely, my tush is a little bit back off my bolster. I don't fit on it. Okay, so lean forward. You can have your sand on your left thigh. That's where you want to go on this one. Use blocks, place them in front of your legs and walk on forward either to the front or over to the right side. Kind of work into that left hip. Breathing. Yeah, spine is lengthening, it's extending, but for some of us, it's not going to feel like it's a back bend. It's kind of a hybrid pattern, isn't it, of spine movement. It's a spine grid. It's a certain type of thing, a spine grid. All right, so feel where the body weight goes forward, either straight in front or a little bit to the right. Take a few more breaths here. Exhale usually moves you forward. Okay, now this left leg gets to take a little breather. So place your blocks to the side. Let the left leg breathe out. So the back of that left knee gets to open up. Sand away. Right leg crosses over in that kind of awkward cross for the calf benefit. And then reach with the belt fully unbuckled, full belt, and then pull. You could work on your status with your spine here, this lift. Right? And the arms kind of draw out of the shoulders. I don't know, maybe you feel like they draw out of your spine. But when you pull back, you can maintain that reach of the foot. Like think about your foot as having arches. I know we do. But I try to sometimes feel the foot like I try to work with my spine. Kind of lift up. Okay, but now we keep the foot arch, we keep that movement back, flex, flex, and then you pull and move forward to stretch your calf. My foot wants to just fling itself back front, but like pushing to the belt, but I've got to resist. I'm pulling, using my arms to pull the foot back. Oof. That is certainly intense on the calf. I don't know if anybody doesn't feel a stretch. You should let us all know what is your secret. But it is intense to stretch the calf like this, huh? Yeah, so feel where the muscles in the back, they even respond very much. It's okay if it's all in the left leg. It might not even resolve. Okay, so sliding the belt off of the foot, no resolution in the calf. It felt stretching the whole time, probably. Hook the left foot under and let that calf kind of release. You can grab a hunk of calf and kind of massage it open. Okay, there you go, calf. You got a little stretch there. And then sand onto the left thigh. Okay. Take a turn to the right, go right into your twist. Don't spend any extra time thinking of other stuff to do. Just turn to your right. There's always something to do at home, I know, but turn, twisty rotation, right hand back on the blanket. If you prefer to bring your hand back around to the loop on the sandbag, if you have a sandbag with a loop, that's fine. It might be good. When you get a hold of that and you turn, you can feel that left arm press. Feel the ribs lift and the spine lifting. Instead of trying to just focus on twisting, you want to find lift and then twist. So extension and then rotation. Breathing. Yeah, the body's really been kind of washed through with the practice today. It's been pretty full blend of movements. Now unwind, you can breathe again. Okay, place the right leg forward. So uncross a little bit of that twisting hook of the foot. Right foot front of the left knee and sand over on the right thigh. And then you'll take a reach with both of your blocks to the front. So I would just lean your bones forwards. If you need a reset on your bolster, that last side we kind of set ourselves on. So tilt, you can take your blocks left, you can keep them straight in front. What would be a deciding factor on that? Might feel where you're fairly balanced in your sitting bones before you set off to the left, or if you decide to cruise to one side more than the other. But it's a right hip dominant position. So when you lean forward, you can let your back muscles lengthen out of the spine space. I think the sand is really critical on this one, just to keep that hip opening. Okay, final spinal here. So when you get a feel of that back reaching, let's keep our blocks in the front. So if your blocks are over to the left, I want you to bring them back to the front. Let's see how this will go. We'll turn our blocks so that they're at the mid height. Okay, and we'll shift our hands back and take the sand off for a moment. Might be using it, but we'll see. Slide back. So if you uncross the legs, you can bring your feet to Baddha Konasana, so soles together, and then slide your seat back onto this blanket. It's kind of nice. This is not a way we generally are doing Baddha Konasana often, but this is a good way to work on your core strength. So your legs are propped up a little bit on the bolster. The bolster is right under my thighs. My feet are fairly connected with the soles together. And then I'm trying to keep my back muscles upright versus rounding and kind of sagging down. So I'm just working on my sitting bones centered and up. Not an easy representation, huh? And then take your feet a little bit out and take the bolster. And I want you to flip the bolster to its short end and then lean forward so my feet are as wide as my mat, and that's it. Maybe a little bit farther out I went, but they're not out to the splits or anything. Yeah, let the back find its warmth. Okay, now bend your knees and scoot off of the blankets and then turn the bolster on top of the blocks. Take one of your blankets from behind you on the bolster. Be sure you're not too close to the wall so your feet, well, actually, I like that version when my feet touch the wall. I kind of missed that. I haven't done that in a while. So take your feet up on top of the bolster. If you're close enough to the wall, you might like a little touch. You might not like that, but it's one thing that is done for grounding purposes and poses, is to touch the wall. Okay, I can see an idea where the feet float. That's nice too. So move your sand so it goes either across your rib cage. Okay, and center so that when you have that support of the sand, if you miss it on the legs, probably your feet close to the wall is going to balance that energy. And you feel where the sand is really kind of molded onto you. Okay, arms are set down by the side, so it's calming for the nervous system. They're no higher than the heart for certain. We want to keep them calming so the palms relax, the weight of the body. If there's distracting to have the wall at your feet, you might have to play with that a little bit. You can always slide a tiny bit back. You can just feel a little bit of the wall with your feet. You decide with the foot situation. And then balance the energy of inhale with the relaxation of exhalation, letting go. If you have an eye pillow, it's on, or the eyelids are performing their eye pillow work. Just feel the alternating expression of the respiratory muscles. Taking in oxygen and letting out waste. And you build up in the body. Now, once the motion of breath is established, just feel if you can let your feet move a little bit up onto the bolster blanket so that the soles of the feet are close, the knees are apart, you're no longer touching the wall. And that suggests quite a bit of circulation through the adductors. It's a lot of motion through the inner thighs. Right, stimulating that circulation through the vital organs. And if the tailbone is feeling a little bit toughened up in this position, you might come out sooner. And so you don't have to stay, you can always release. And then moving that sand, part of the practice though is, repetition, consistency, stability, and staying within it and just see how the body can go work on endurance. Now the knees motion in towards each other, sand is away, and then move the legs in towards your chest. Feel that hug of the back of the legs towards your mid body. Yeah, this is kind of where you probably first began doing some stretching work, right? Just lying on your back, tucking your knees to your chest. It's been this simple before. And then just roll to the side and let a moment be where you come up and we have a conscious focus together. So we bring our blanket underneath us, take a seat up, and then just let your hands move to your thighs so that the spine can adjust itself out of the pelvis. Usually it has a little bit of a pressure to move up. And then lift up your hands and let's bring the hands together in a moment of internal breathing, focusing inwards, and exhale, bowing into